Hi, it's Richard, JFK assassination researcher Richard Hooke. And every year about this time, I try to do a little something about the JFK assassination in memory of President Kennedy. And so this year, I've decided to do a video about JD Tippit, who hasn't been given as much attention in the past, but as Oswald and JFK. But in my books, I always have had a couple of chapters on JD since the beginning. Actually, it wasn't until my last couple of books that I started to really realize the full role that JD Tippit played in the Kennedy assassination. And I just want to explain it a little bit to you and go over Tippit's actions that day. We know, well, although Tippit was involved with the conspirators at an operational level, he surely didn't want to die that day, okay? The conspirators sacrificed JD to help them cover up the assassination of President Kennedy. Just like they did Lee Oswald, JD for his corpse and Oswald to shut him up. Okay, the Zionist Illuminati, Jesuit deep state perpetrators of the Kennedy assassination are the same faction behind the COVID-19 hoax, vaccination push, and presidential election scandal that we're facing in 2020. It's the same forces, okay? In 1963, the conspirators murdered JFK, Tippit, and Oswald so they could accomplish their evil designs. You see, they don't care who they have to kill or what they have to destroy. For them, the end where they're in total control justifies any means necessary. Okay, so I'll just get into it, tell you a few, actually I even have a few new insights in here on Tippit, so this might be interesting to many. Okay. And of course, what follows, it's not absolute fact. It's my opinion as a researcher after 10 plus years of research, but this isn't in court or anything. So anyway, I just wanted to show you disc asset Rod Mackenzie, who was the Holland Avenue safe house manager. He gave me this little notebook that he kept when he was a safe house manager. He kept notes. It's a little date book. And actually, it was an insurance company thing, but a little date book that he used. And he kept notes when he was managing the safe house. And he mentions Tippit. Mackenzie knew Tippit. He told me that. He liked Tippit. He went over to his house. He said Tippit was a man's man, Mackenzie. He said he liked JD. Mackenzie came to Dallas at the beginning of the summer of '63, and he was told that he was going to be managing the Holland Avenue safe house. Actually, he was driven from Houston to Dallas by David Ferry to the Dallas Cabana Motel. And then Tippit took Mackenzie in his police car over to the Holland Avenue safe house. And Mackenzie met Tippit. Mackenzie even told about how he had been to Tippit's house and there were a bunch of broken down cars in the yard. And actually Mackenzie said Tippit was always whining about how he was sorry that he had cheated on his wife. And he was always singing that song, Mackenzie said. But Mackenzie regarded Tippit as a friend. Many times they had gone down to a nearby river wash and for target practice early in the morning. But here in the little notebook, it says right here, he's on, this is June of 1963, June 20th. He has written down here, actually towards the end of the month, it's over a couple of days, meet cop and a guy named Rubenstein, okay? Okay, and let's see. And then it says here, see, it even has Tippit. You can see Tippit's name right there, okay? And it says, Cop Tippit says he met my handler, Jake Miranda, who was Mackenzie's disc handler, who owned the Circus Lounge restaurant by Fair Park. But Tippit met him, and Tippit took Mackenzie to the safe house. So we have written notes from Mackenzie that Tippit was involved with conspirators at an operational level, at a low level, is what he was. We know that. We know that for a fact. Okay, so, JD Tippit was definitely in with the conspirators. We know that for a fact. And actually, we know at 12:30 on November 22nd, Tippit was on the grassy knoll, okay? He was there with Roscoe White. And you can see him right there, the tall one. Roscoe's the shorter guy shooting in the police outfit. And actually, Tippit was in a police outfit too. And some enhancements to this, you can see the police badges on Tippit's shirt. And you can see the little way his hair flipped in the front there. He's taller than Roscoe with a longer cranium. This is Gordon Arnold, who's in front of the picket fence over here. Okay. But JD was on the knoll. He was a spotter for Roscoe. Let's see. Here's another picture where you can see JD is like the taller guy. He was the spotter for Roscoe the shooter. These are in some of my earlier books, these pics. So JD was a spotter at 12:30 when JFK was shot. He was a spotter for Roscoe, who was the badge man shooter on the grassy knoll behind the northern picket fence. Okay, just a few minutes after the shooting, JD Tippit was seen directing traffic behind the TSPD next to his patrol car. Now, behind the Texas School Book Depository was where the cars came in. There was the only open road access and exit road. So Tippit, no doubt, was making sure the conspirators got out of there. He was directing traffic right after the shooting. He was seen back there. Okay. Now next, JD Tippit was seen parked in his patrol car by the Glauco gas station at the south end of the Houston Street Viaduct in Oak Cliff from 12:45 to 12:50. That's where JD was parked next, 12:45 to 12:50 by the Glauco gas station. He was watching traffic cross the viaduct, waiting for Cecil McWater's bus that was scheduled to arrive at the corner of Zang and Marsalis. So Tippit was watching for the bus to arrive there. Okay. The bus was bogged down for a bit in post-assassination traffic, and it finally arrived, and it didn't stop at the bus stop, okay, because Oswald, he wasn't on the bus, okay. That was the original plan, that Oswald was going to take the bus, but he didn't. He decided to forego the original plan, didn't take the bus, so the bus just drove right on by and didn't stop, and then Tippit knew there was a problem, okay, because he was going to pick up Oswald there. And that was the original plan, and then take Oswald to 10th and Patton, and then Redbird Airfield, where Oswald was going to be flown to Mexico. And Tippit had a police shirt hanging in his patrol car for Oswald. Okay. So at that point at the Glauco station, when Oswald didn't arrive by bus, Tippit gassed it around Oak Cliff and was next seen at the Top 10 record store making a frantic phone call from about 1:02 to 1:03 p.m. Okay, at Top 10 Records, he ran in, grabbed the phone, made a call, but he didn't speak. Apparently nobody was there. He didn't speak to anyone and then rushed back out of the store to his patrol car. Okay. At approximately 103 to 104, Tippit stopped insurance salesman James Andrews and frantically searched his car 8 blocks west of 10th and Patton. So he stopped a guy. He thought Oswald might be in the car, searched, looked in the back seat, and then got back in his car and went on towards 10th and Patton. He then proceeded in his car to 10th and Patton, where witness Helen Markham said Tippit was shot at approximately 1:06 p.m. Okay, he was shot, we now know, by Gary Marlowe and Roscoe White of the CIA, and Lee Oswald was not even there. Okay, and actually, just a side note, and researcher Rachel White has made me aware of this, that incidentally, Jack Ruby's stripper, Joy Dale, and her sister, Maxie Witherspoon, lived in the house at 10th by 10th and Patton, and JD Tippit was having an affair with Witherspoon, and his police car was seen parked there at lunchtime all the time. So that's just a side note, and actually, this is a connection of 10th and Patton to Jack Ruby, because basically everything in the assassination is connected to Jack Ruby. You just have to look a little bit. And here's the 10th and Patton connection. Okay. So JD Tippit's corpse then was picked up at 10th and Patton by the Dudley Hughes Funeral Home ambulance at approximately 1:12 p.m. before the police even got to 10th and Patton at all. They were there real quick. These guys knew Ruby too, and he'd told them to get down there and pick him up quick. And then Tippit was declared dead at the Methodist Hospital in Oak Cliff by Justice of the Peace Joe Brown at 1:15 p.m. Okay, we have a document that says that. Methodist Hospital served as a holding area for J.D. Tippit's corpse until Jack Ruby and the conspirators at Parkland Hospital could determine if Tippit's corpse would be necessary to falsify JFK's autopsy, and it was being held. Tippit's corpse was being held at Methodist until the exact time when they needed it, because they needed to bring Tippit's corpse from Methodist to Parkland. They didn't want him very long at Parkland, Tippit. They were going to pack him with JFK to be loaded on AF2, but this had to be done real quickly, obviously. So they only wanted Tippit in the Parkland DOA room as quickly as possible. So basically, Tippit's corpse, the Dudley Hughes ambulance drove Tippit's corpse from Methodist to Parkland Hospital, where Tippit was admitted to the DOA room at 2:15 p.m. Okay, Tippit was brought down there, and JFK, of course, had already been declared dead at 1 o'clock, but JFK's corpse was still there. JFK's empty bronze casket left Parkland at 2:20 p.m. for Love Field. The bronze casket that was loaded on Air Force One that was empty, okay? It was guarded the whole way back to Bethesda by the Secret Service and Jackie, so nobody was allowed to look at it and decide and discover that it was empty. But JFK and Tippett's corpses were packed together in an unmarked casket in the Parkland Hospital DOA room at approximately 2:30 p.m. They were stuffed in an unmarked box together, okay? Naked together and marked. JFK's corpse was marked with Jackie's wedding ring on the little finger of his left hand, JFK's corpse, and Tippit had his name written on one of his forearms. Okay, so they had the corpses marked so they could tell him. So John Liggett, the CIA reconstruction expert who was on Air Force Two, would be able to tell them apart and be sure. So then at 2:38, LBJ Lyndon Johnson was sworn in on AF1 at 2:38 p.m. Johnson was sworn in as president on AF1 at Love Field, with the windows of AF1 rolled down as the unmarked box containing Tippit and JFK was being loaded on AF2 by the Secret Service at the same time. The Secret Service guys who did that, actually, they were the guys, well, other than Clint Hill and maybe, I think, one other one, but they were the guys on the Queen Mary follow-up car behind in the motorcade. They were the ones who loaded stuff onto AF2, and they had to load the unmarked box on there, okay? So then at 2:47 p.m., Air Force One left Love Field, and Air Force Two left there shortly afterward, after 2:47 p.m. So that's the rundown on Tippit. That's why they shot him. Oswald wasn't even there. So they shot him to shut him up because obviously he was a spotter for Roscoe on the knoll. So it was one less guy in the know who could talk. But they needed his corpse. They needed a second corpse. Let me see if I can explain to you just real quick. And if I had a whiteboard, maybe I'll do another presentation. But you see, if you picture JFK's head divided, the left-hand side was shot by the in-car shooters, and the right-hand side was shot by the guys on the grassy knoll. Okay, so JFK had wounds on both sides of his head. So they definitely needed a body double. They needed Tippit, who could be made up by Liggett as JFK. They'd already determined that. But you see, the left side by the in-car shooters had an entry hole from Jackie by the left here and an exit hole up here. Okay, and then it had an entry hole by the left temple from William Greer, the driver. Okay, so there were 3 wounds on the left side of his head, 2 entry wounds and an exit wound. And then over on the right-hand side, it had he had an entry wound from James Files in the right temple, and a massive exit wound on the right side of his head from Files. Also, it's a frangible bullet that exited out the back. Okay, and then there were a couple wounds in the right parietal from the knoll, probably from Roscoe White and Charles Harrelson, that went into his head and didn't come out. So there was like at least 4 wounds on the right side of his head and 3 on the left. So they even Liggett, the reconstruction guy, although he was a genius, they had to give him something to work with. They had to give him a spare corpse. See, in an autopsy, you have to picture the head from all sides. And he needed a picture of JFK from the left side that was clean. And they had that with Tippit, okay? Because Roscoe shot him in the right temple. And so there were no wounds in the left side of Tippit's head at all. So anyway, that's just a brief explanation of why the call went down. They definitely needed Tippit's corpse because JFK's head was shot up on both sides. So that's just a quick explanation of that. So anyway, remember JFK. This Sunday is the 22nd, the 57th anniversary. Never forget, because November 22nd, 63 was where it all started. It's where we went downhill from there and how we ended up in the mess we're in today. We never exposed the whole truth about the event. Just like 9/11, it's not been exposed. These things need to be exposed completely to decrease the chances they're going to keep doing them. I mean, here, now we've got this, we've had all these false flag shootings, and now we have this COVID-19 hoax and the election scandal. And God knows we might have an alien invasion by Christmas. So, anyway, it's Richard Hooke, JFK assassination researcher, signing out.